Hmm.
in actually, yeah, you're good.
For thousands of years, elders and knowledge keepers have used stories to educate future generations. Stories and words can help heal our hearts and make Mother Earth a better place for all people. This is Healing Hearts.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Healing Hearts. I'm Tracy Koga. Music, it feeds our soul. And it might be just the one thing that doesn't discriminate. Or does it? Tonight, we celebrate two very legendary Indigenous artists, and they'll share their stories on how music has shaped them and molded them into the people that they are today. But first, a word from our sponsors.
So the Hive is a climbing and fitness facility, so we're bouldering only, which means no ropes or harnesses. We use mats for protection. But the four pillars of our business are climbing, education, health and wellness, and community, and those aspects all kind of come together to create like a 5-star climbing experience.
Okay, well, we're back, and boys, I introduced you as legendary. So don't fail me here, okay? No, I am so happy to have Vince Fontaine, and I will only know him as one name, and that's Spatch Mahal. And it is so good to see your faces, guys. It's been a long, long time. And, to know that you're alive and well and doing music and great music, wow. But I guess, a comment from both of you. That must be good, right? Life is good. Hey, Vince?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having us guest this evening in Winnipeg. And yes, it's very good to be here, and very good to be alive, and very good to have music as a sharing piece of our expression and emotion. And there's so many lyric and cliches around music, right? Music heals, music loves, music lives. Um, Anyways, thank you so much for that introduction and the legendary stuff. We'll pass it over to Spat.
Ah, no. And hey, I mean, let's start off, Spatch, with like the new world that we're living in, right? Everybody's had to pivot. And how are things for you?
Well, like Vince, I want to thank you for having us on the show tonight. It's pretty exciting. It's nice to see. Nice to see you. I haven't seen you for a long time. Things are good. I haven't actually stopped doing anything during the pandemic. Just went straight through for the last couple of years doing hampers with Bear Clan and Mum Away and things like that. So it's kind of nice to see things getting back to normal. And even more exciting uh, for me personally is being able to get together with the members of Indian City and play live and get to some of the communities and who've really been isolated and see the joy and the happiness in their faces when they get to hear live music.
No. Okay, so Vince, I'm going to take a trip down memory lane. Let's talk about how you began in music and Eagle and Hawk, and then get into Indian City.
Sure. Okay. So I'll intersect with my history with Spatch. I'll just go way back to the early 90s. And we were like, I don't know, 18, 19 years old, Spatch, 20 maybe tops. No, just kidding. We were in the Winnipeg scene. We were in the Winnipeg music scene, the club scene, which was just a lot of fun. And we were playing and bopping around downtown and the suburbs, from the Diamond Club, Night Moves, the Palladium, the Big A. So Spatch and I were in the same music scene, and we knew each other, and we got to hang out occasionally on Sundays, because that was the day of the week that we didn't really play. So some of the musicians got together at some of the places. So yeah, so that kind of just continued our journey as a live performer and in the club scene. And in the club scene, you basically learn to share your music. You get to get better at your craft and how to entertain an audience and all of the above. And just, it was a different scene, of course, in the early and mid 90s, but that's where we started off. And then I'll just quickly go, probably 1994, 95, who's our friend now, and at the time we met him back in the day, was Troy Westwood. Troy Westwood was he was a Winnipeg football player, Winnipeg Blue Bombers place kicker. And, I don't know what came first, whether it was we met him at the Marble Club, or I met him at the Big A with Spatch jamming, or I met him with, when Phil Fontaine was the Grand Chief of AMC and he introduced us. So all of the above. And so we all met. And so in the early days, we formed a band, a group, which was kind of a writing idea. And of course, Spatch was right there at the beginning with Eagle and Hawk. And so you could say in a sense that, Spatch was one of the, like say we were a new, hockey franchise. It started off with the first pick, the second pick, and Spatch was right up there as the first round pick as well with Troy. We started off, so that's how we kind of just got going. And I'll kind of let Spatch give you a few memory lane of those early days of when we got together, because we went into the recording studio and Spatch was there recording, probably Listen to the Wind, Spatch, or the song Eagle and Hawk. I can't remember, but back in the day, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, they were, it was an interesting concept. I remember being on the top of, I don't think I was actually in the band yet, or maybe the band hadn't formed. Did the band come first or the promo picture? So I remember standing on top of Garbage Hill with you and Troy. My hair was down to here, and I was looking off to and we had that group together. So it was a lot of fun. Trying to understand exactly what the band was trying to do, and even cooler watching the songs evolve over records. Started off with sort of basic, sort of blues types, 12-bar kind of stuff. And and then evolved into Running with the Wolf and songs like that. Yeah, so it was really cool to see what it evolved into, and how the songs took on. Once the identity sort of became established, the songs became more recognizable and more about issues and stuff. So it's been pretty amazing.
So I want to ask then, if you kind of reflect back, both of you, it truly was, or I think, the love of music. But back then, obviously there maybe was a little bit of a pushback on who you were and Eagle and Hawk and the whole idea.
Yeah, like what's interesting about the early days, and I probably thought about it not as much as maybe some folks may have taken note. And when we did a recent documentary for Eagle and Hawk called Eagle and Hawk Takes the Stage, one of our guests that commented a lot on the history of Eagle and Hawk was former Senator Murray Sinclair. And he said what he took note from the beginning was the fact that, Vince Fontaine had invited a non-Indigenous person into this whole new circle, Eagle and the Hawk and Troy and Vince and Spatch and Michelle Briere, who was our drummer, and these kind of things. We were trying to create a community through music, of inclusion, and it would be often, and not always, but often an Indigenous perspective or lens. And so there was issues back in the day, and folks may recall in the mid 90s, there was some social issues going on, whether it was the crisis in Oka, some of the claims that were going on in Western Canada. But we just tried to find out who we were necessarily as like Indigenous artists. Of course, in those days, we used the word Aboriginal, right? Which I never really liked at all. So, but we just started off, as Spat said, we evolved with some themes and ideas, and we did have a foundational, I think, maybe a little bit of identity. We tried to be this or that, and so that's how we kind of came out of the gate. And Troy was really keen, and Troy did what he thought he wanted to do by being part of the community. And he was even adopted by one of the leading elders in Manitoba, Dave Cashane from my community in Saguin.
Mm-hmm.
And so Troy was part of that and attended a lot of the teachings and ceremonies for years because he believed it in his heart and soul. And so that was part of the early days of Eagle and Hawk, which would eventually lead to the phone ringing more and more for live gigs.
I
It was
know.
really kind of cool. And we did a lot of cool gigs back in the day, the Pan Am Games in '99, for example, and so on. There's a lot of gigs. There's so many it'd be hard to count them all, even in the early days.
Well, what would be your favorite? Spatch.
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I think to add on to what Vince was saying earlier, Vince, would you agree or disagree? Because I wasn't there the first number of times that you went. Would you say that the band was accepted initially in Europe more than it was in Canada? Is that?
Well, I don't know if it was accepted first in Europe. It actually gained recognition more in Europe because it went there more, and we started getting an audience that really liked the band and realized, hey, there's something cool about this. And the media was very generous with us back here in Winnipeg and Manitoba and parts of Canada, that they would cover some of our stories, and some of our fellow musicians in the Winnipeg scene were saying, hey, you guys are going to Europe again, and wow, that must be cool, and you're playing in certain cities. Because in the early days, the phone did ring a lot to go to those places in Europe. And, from 1996, 97, we went to Europe 4 or 5 times a year and did, 3 or 4 weeks every time we toured. And so the touring got a lot that we needed to get a full-time singer. So by the time the end of 1997 rolled around, it became apparent that Eagle and Hawk would kind of be a full-time band. And so, we made the call to get Jay Bodner as the singer.
Wow.
And Jay came in, yeah.
Yeah.
It just
yeah.
some of the great. I've had some of the best musical just life experience I think ever, all because of this band. One of the first concert I ever went to, when I didn't know a lot about Indigenous peoples, let's say, because I'm from Toronto, was my favorite band at the time was Redbone, and you didn't have social media and stuff. And when I went to see them, actually I just read an article talking about how they were banned in Canada for 7 years because they would open their shows with a smudge and a traditional dance. And that's the first band that I saw. And then years later, we get to actually hang out with those guys, full circle. The second band, I think, that was my favorite at the time was Grand Funk, which I'd seen, with 30,000 other people. And we actually got to do a show with Mark Farner. I think it was in Thunder Bay, and that was just that was amazing.
That was amazing.
Yeah, that was pretty. So I remember, so I had a vision of him from when I was 16, long blonde hair, red guitar, no shirt on. And he was on the bus that was taking us to the gig, and I went running on the bus and, where's Mark? And I'd run right past him because now he was an older gentleman, Because you think your idols never age. But some of the great shows, I got to tell you, New Orleans, playing in Europe, playing the 2010 the Olympics in Vancouver, doing 4 or 5 shows there. Just amazing opportunities that you get paid to go to places, and you get this amazing experience outside of the box of everybody who's attending intentionally, paying fees and trips, and so that's been amazing.
Oh,
yeah.
you know what? And I want to kind of go back to the very beginning, how both of you got into music and why.
Oh. Who do you want to start with?
Who has the better story? Both of you.
Well,
Yeah.
my story is like I was raised by my grandparents in Toronto. My mom was a singer. Um, she was an only child, and my dad wasn't around, so I didn't really have the parenting. I had my grandparents, which was from a different generation. I was into music like Elvis Presley, playing on the record player, and then what happened was the Beatles.
Mhm.
The Beatles came. I wanted to play. I wanted to perform. I wanted to be all part of that. My mom happened to work with a company that wholesaled musical equipment called B&J Music to all the stores across Canada, which was in my neighborhood. So I was able to go at lunchtime or after school. And one day I was a drummer. One day I was a trumpet player. One day I could take the instruments home. I started off on drums. And my grandfather let me know after a few days that wasn't going to work out. So I switched to bass, and that was kind of like the Beatles and music just became part of my family and parented me, and I just it's the first thing that could really make a commitment to that just I couldn't wait to get to.
Wow. And how about you, Vince?
Um, some of my friends in the neighborhood in North Kildonan in Winnipeg, or I could have gone back and said the North End on Mountain Avenue. So both kind of, but a couple of my friends played guitar, acoustic guitar, and they played some songs that were probably out at the time, like Neil Young and maybe some folky stuff. But it was kind of cool, and they said, "Hey, here's how you play. Here's how you play." Hey Joe, or here's how you play a Beatles song or a Rolling Stones song. So it was kind of cool to just be introduced to that. And the scene that I grew up musically was guitar music, from, whether it was Aerosmith or Led Zeppelin, some of the British bands I really liked, or the blues, R&B. And so, yeah, you just slowly learn how to play, and your friends teach you a few chords because, there was no internet or YouTube to learn and get guitar lessons. So you just kind of listen by, putting your record on or by cassette or something and just jamming at parties or something. So yeah, I just, that's how I got involved. And like I said, I think if I look back and even bring it up to date, probably the main influences that may be reflective in my writing would be, guitar players like Jimmy Page and Pink Floyd, or probably some of the British, and then the blues, of course. So that would be my influences as a guitar player. But certainly Jimmy Page and Carlos Santana would stand out.
Oh, good old Carlos. Love him.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to kind of skyrocket to maybe just before where we are now, the beginnings of Indian City and the landscape, right, of music. And I think from, after Eagle and Hawk and everything like that, can I say it? And I will. Music became very generic, pop, white. That was the mainstream stuff. And then, being a person of color or whatever, it was a little bit harder to get into the business. And you know what, I guess a group like Indian City, when you started it and how it all became and the story behind it, Vince, what was your vision for Indian City?
Well, I didn't rewrite the playbook, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Did get influenced by two musical entities, and I always have to share this one. Watching PBS back in 2011, I would say, there's a group from New York in the 70s. People may never have heard this story, but there was a group that was doing a fusion and playing Latino music, and they coined the phrase salsa music. This group was called the Fania All Stars in the Upper West Side in New York, and what was interesting to me about that music era and group, which actually skyrocketed and toured quickly for 2-3 years, worldwide in the mid 70s. They were a big band, like, so, 10, 12, 15-piece band, but they had 3 or 4 singers. I thought, boy, what a cool thing, right? And the band leader was just the band leader. And that really struck me, like, this group started a music movement, and they fused ideas of Latino music with R&B and different rhythmic stuff like that. And then the summer of 2011, in August, I went with my good friend Errol Randall Seaweed,
Oh, yes.
and we went to Calgary, and we watched the master Carlos Santana.
Oh,
And he was on the heels of his Supernatural album, which was still already at that time 7, 8, 9, 10 years later. He had that album that he had featured 7, 8, 9 singers on his album, and it won multiple Grammys. But it was interesting because his band was a big band, like maybe an 8-piece band, and he had 2 or 3 singers. And I thought, holy smoke, is that ever cool? He's the guitar player, but he's not the singer, but he's got these great singers. What a concept to surround yourself with great singers. So when I left it and came back to Winnipeg, I immediately phoned up Don Amaro.
oh, good old Don.
I said, Don, I got this idea. I'm gonna put together this band. It'll be kind of a large group, and I'm going to have multiple singers. It's just kind of a writing and recording project, but you never know, the phone may ring. So I phoned up Don Amaro, and he was excited. We got together, wrote a couple of songs quickly. One of them, which is called Stand, which is one of my favorite Indian City songs. I also called up a young fellow, William Prince, and I said, hey, William, how'd you like to be part of this project? And he was very eager and keen on it. So he jumped in, and we wrote a couple of songs for that first album. And then I called another young talent, Indigenous talent, Pamela Davis. And then I got a hold of brother and sister Tick and Niwa Mason, who were already Juno Award winners from a band called Burnt Project.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, oh, do I got a cool core of people? And of course, hosting the core of talent with the foundation of Eagle and Hawkers like Spatch and Jerry Bell and Marty Chapman and Jaylene Johnson and Ray Coco Stevenson with the traditional vocal side. We had this fabulous music group. And in 2011, February of 2012, we did our first show at the Festival de Voyageurs. So that was the initial just coming out of the gate there with Eagle and Hawk. And I'll tell you, with Indian City.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, was that a lot of fun. And it really set the kind of footsteps to go forward.
Well, and it definitely showcased the talent in the Indigenous community, and regardless, just the talent that we have in our city. And Spatch, I want to talk to you, knowing you and just your hard work and your love for your community and the people. You as a musician and being able to have all these incredible experiences, how have you transcended that into your community and with the youth? Because you're right, right, guys? They are the future, right? They're going to be the future Indian cities and Eagle and Hawks and whatever.
Well, that's a really good question. I found that, as you said early, like they say, music is the I'm not sure the phrase, like the common language, common denominator, and it's helped to break a lot of break the ice, break barriers, things like that. I would have I remember playing at a place like Wise Guys when I started doing my programming, and Perry Miller being an ex-NHL player, all the NHL players would come to Norma Jean's or Wise Guys, and I'd be like, oh my God, Wendell Clark or Wayne Gretzky's here. And I'd run up to that group and I'd say, hey, and they say, hey, you're in the band. And it just breaks down that barrier. And seems like hockey players want to be musicians, musicians want to be hockey players. So what we did with programming is we decided to meet young people instead of telling them what to do, is try to meet them at their point of interest. And everybody's interested in music, and especially if you all of a sudden you pick up a guitar and start singing a song, they look at you and they're like, they're trying to figure out what that is. So we started a bunch of different performing arts kind of programs, like the Just TV program and music programs, and they've been extremely successful. And the diversity that you see now, all the problems we see in the world, but you see a group of young people, between 12 and 15 or 16 years old from every part of the world, all sitting down talking about music or talking about common interests. And one of the things is, of course, well, you're Muslim and you're Christian, and now you've kind of opened the conversation up. They say, well, what does that mean? Tell me about your life and what kind of food you eat, and we'll tell you. So it's really helped to evolve and develop programs. And the secret is by empowering the young people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And giving them the opportunities to tell their stories, to hear their voice, see themselves on screen. So I find that music in general has really helped me evolve or develop in the work that I do.
Oh, and it is so true. I mean, it does transcend so many barriers. And Vince, now, and Spatch, what's happening in the world with truth and reconciliation, we have seen the travesty of the residential schools. We have more survivors and their families and loved ones coming out to share their lived experience. And yes, it is grief, and yes, it is sadness, but it's also a chance for them to have a voice. How now with your group, Indian City, maybe not addressing, but are you kind of, moving forward, maybe writing music to heal and bridge, or is that a thought?
That's a good question. Let me just go back about 3+ years when Indian City released its last album, Here and Now.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that was actually released in late 2017. And 2017, of course, was 150 years of Canada's birth. So the album titled Here and Now, many of the tracks on the album were pointed, and they were pointed at the history with the relationship with Indigenous people and Canadian governments, institutions, and so on, which weren't really pleasant. It wasn't a pleasant history tale. And so there were songs on that album that were called Through the Flood, which was turned out, of course, it's about the 1,200 plus missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. And heartbreaking song, which tragically got reopened that wound, which called Take Me Home. We wrote a song about the children of residential school, Take Me Home, and it imagined it through the eyes of a child looking through the fence of a residential school. How horrific and troubling that would be and damaging for their lifetime. So there were songs on that last album that were quite pointed, but as I always try and say, we don't just want to talk and write about the dark, the gloom, and the we want to try and get past it, which in a sense is what the Code Red album is about. Because we all know we can't ignore the elephant in the room. There has been a pandemic. It's not the first in the history of the world. It's not the first plague or the first pause in society, whether it's war or famine. These are things that happen, and the earth is part of it. And maybe this is another thing we're realizing: the earth is so sacred and special that we don't know how Mother Earth. We just need to pay a little bit more attention. And I was about to find comment on the catastrophic situations in BC.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not anyway. I just know that it troubles my heart, and I realize that people are suffering. But I also realize the earth is it's its own incredible force. And so the Code Red album, of course, was more specific to kind of looking at things post-pandemic, post-COVID with hope, trying to give some hope and remembering some of the simplicities that Indigenous people have 7 sacred teachings, and they're synonymous with many of the Indigenous groups in North America, and probably many cultures around the world have sacred teachings as well, and they probably all share the same foundations: love, caring, forgiveness, respect, wisdom, honesty, right? So these are the maybe those fundamental attributes that we need to kind of reacquire to move past. So again, like the record is called Code Red, but if you think about it, Code Red, it's not a pandemic statement. It's a statement of let's call it today urgency
Yeah.
and statement
Call,
of urgency.
yeah.
That's
And
really the album.
call for help. And I would say right now our earth is in a very fragile state, as much as
Yeah.
we go on our busy lives and yeah, and Spatch too. Like maybe this album maybe the next one will be a little bit more Beatlesque and get us back into that loving and everything's good time. And I mean, and that leads me to your single Smile, and I love it. And folks, yeah, you have to just go onto YouTube and Google it. It's called Smile by Indian City. We were going to show it tonight, but technical difficulties. And I love it. I love to see my good friend Jeremy Cause in the band, and I love the video. It's just fun, and I think that was the intention of both the song and the video. Spatch.
Well, actually, Vince will answer that one because
Okay.
he pioneered that video.
You just
He'll tell you
played
how
in
he
it.
did it.
No,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, it's so much fun, and I guess Vince, it must have been fun to put that one together.
Well, sure. You know, the concept behind that song was, you know, in the last 20 plus years, there was a lot of times, and we are today, when we're out in public, often we don't see people's full face because we're, you know, covered up with a mask. But in reality, people sometimes to themselves cover up their full beauty and smile for whatever reason. And one of the things I enjoyed seeing is, say, if I was walking outside or in the mall and I saw somebody with a mask, but you could tell they're just smiling with their eyes and everything. And I was thinking, there's a lot of power and beauty from a smile. And of course, you know, from a male point of view or a female point of view, the smile of, you know, the same sex or opposite sex is really powerful, and it just kind of lightens up the world, and that's really what the song was about. And Jeremy, who actually, by the way, is a cousin of mine, and he's from Saugeen First Nation. He's a band member there, so he really sings it incredible. And so Jeremy and I, we wrote that song, and he does a fabulous job with it.
Oh, it just resonates so much, and you know, even to get back to, you know, making that bond, making that connection. Yeah, I mean, for both of you, and first to Spatch, you know, the future of Indian City, and where do you see it going, and, you know, what kind of music do you envision Indian City playing in the future?
Well, I'm extremely proud and excited about the current record. I think it's just a giant step forward. As far as the future, I'm hoping that a lot of these songs resonate with people right across, you know, every genre, you know, and there's some great tracks on there, and I hope that we get an opportunity. People hear the music, and they'll give us an opportunity to get out and actually play the music in front of crowds again, because there's nothing like that, you know. And as far as the future of the music, I think, you know, Vince being the man behind the music, it all depends what's happening in the world, you know, and his sort of perception or understanding of those things. I think that's how, in my opinion, he's inspired. He feels everything that's going on. He watches what's going on, and then it resonates with him, and he comes up with an idea for a song, and there it is. So it's hard to say what the next batch of songs are going to sound like, because we're just releasing these ones, and we're really excited about them.
I was going to ask you, how exciting was it to perform live like this past summer? I think it was at Shaw Park.
Oh yeah.
For me, it was amazing because I've had a bit of time off, and I've been so into the work and stuff, and, you know, not having time to be present a lot of the time. Some of these, Shaw Park was amazing, but what was really amazing for me was we went out as a 4 or 5 piece sort of acoustic version of the band. We got to speak, go into a bunch of different communities and talk to the members who were really excited to see live music, or just people from outside the community. And just those drives, you know, seeing the hills and the weather and seeing the people and playing the songs and feeling the breeze and was fantastic for me. Vince can talk more about Shaw Park.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, that looked like pretty amazing.
Well, yeah, Shaw Park was incredible. What an incredible stage. And, it was an honor to be picked to be part of the Manitoba Showcase of 150 years of music. It was really an honor, and to actually open the show musically with a 3-song short music. It was really great. And it was our first big gig in, almost 2 years. So there was a lot of energy, and, and we were a little rusty. I remember the first time. It's so funny. We had a rehearsal, hadn't even picked up my guitar, my electric guitar, and was like, boy, this is really heavy. Next morning, or my, he just wasn't in shape for it. So it was a lot of fun, but it was great to be part of that, but also be part of history again.
Oh, yeah.
For Indian City, because Indian City's played Manitoba's 150th, but Indian City Band also played Canada 150 out in Ottawa.
Wow. Well,
Really, really big.
no, so I guess, to wrap things up, I mean, we could go on and on. Oh, and maybe I should say, okay, so you kind of mentioned Eagle and Hawk favorite moments, Indian City favorite moments, because you have played on the same stage as some pretty big bands.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Maybe it was the first time Indian City. So Indian City did a showcase in New York City, and we were showcasing at the National Museum in Lower Manhattan, and that was really exciting. I was there with Jerry Atwell, our very good friend, who's coming up to 2 years of his passing.
Yeah,
and
I know.
in the same breath, I have to mention our dear friend Marty Chapman, who also passed about 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So we did the trip. So we did the gig in New York City, I guess about 7 years ago, and it was with Pamela Davis vocals, Niwa, and Tick on bass, and Coco. So it was a great gig, but that was a real highlight. Like, hey, you're in the Big Apple playing and you're showcasing, and I said to Coco, I said, let's bring your drum down to Times Square. I'm going to give you tobacco, and we're going to do a song for the ancestors of the island of Manhattan, for the traditional caretakers of the land. It was pretty special.
Wow. I mean, you must have had all of Manhattan just kind of stop and stare.
Well, everybody by the red stairs stopped. And people in Times Square, they know where the red stairs are. So it's pretty cool.
Oh, well, that's so good. And I just kind of want to get your perspective, not only on Indigenous, also including newcomers here that come to our city, and to encourage and get them to explore music and make them feel welcome and not to discriminate or to make comment on beliefs. How would we do that?
Well, Spatch knows that I had been thinking about some ideas for the new year. In fact, one of them is to do a concert for community. I call it Concert for Community. It's just an idea. And it would really have maybe Indian City Band with guests host a concert for community. And we invite different representatives from different parts of the city, different communities, and just invite them out to just share music and have a bit of a program that has samples. Like we have Folklorama, or we have, what was the other one? We have Taste of Manitoba.
Yeah.
Remember that's
Right.
in the park?
Taste of music. It could be a big sharing circle of music, correct?
So we have a little taste of music, and I would to me it would have to start off with the drum, and we invite everybody, and we call it the Grand Entry, but the Grand Entry of Nations. So I think that would be special. A concert for community would be a neat idea.
I'm sure
Invite
you're all
people.
for that, Spatch.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be fantastic. He got me excited when we talked about food there. Foods of the world would get me really excited.
Oh yeah, not only do you have to play music, you have to bring a dish.
Right.
It's potluck, right?
Yeah. I think people, you have to kind of get out of your own environment and then, start to look. I find that a lot of young people, and we probably did it too when we were young, we looked to, think about how many Canadian artists wrote songs and put California, or put New York, or put, you know, in there because it was just cool to be from somewhere else. And I think if you start to look inward and where you're from and look at all the different sort of cultures of the provinces, I think, you know, that I think you'd be pretty excited and pretty proud of being in and from Canada.
You know what?
'Cause we have great culture.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. I love this idea, Vince, and even to expand on that is to offer the stage to these new artists and make them feel welcome and let them share their story too, because that's all part of it, right? Is getting to know the artist. And you know what? You know, both of you, as when you go up on stage, you're vulnerable, right? You're naked. You don't know whether the crowd's going to boo you or cheer you, and that can be very daunting. But to allow them to share their music in a safe space and enjoy, I think that is a wonderful idea. So on that note, I'll be your first fan there at the concert, so let me know. And I am so happy and proud of you guys. Indian City, brand new album, Code Red, it is out. Smile is a great video. You can go on YouTube, like them, and whatever that social media stuff does. But thank you so much, Vince and Spatch. It's been wonderful.
Just let everybody. Oh, thank you so much, and just to let everybody know that the record, the CD, is available now on Spotify and Apple Music. So
there you go.
Get out there, go have a listen.
I was going to say on all your favorite platforms.
People can go to our Facebook perhaps and even inbox for, we'll probably post that we have some, you know, for sale if people want to get a physical copy from us.
Okay, so give us your Facebook. What is it? Indian City?
Yeah, I guess it would be Indian City. Yeah. And, you know, YouTube is Indian City Music. Same as Instagram is Indian City Music.
Okay, Indian City Music. Go there. All your favorite platforms. Support Vince and Spatch.
All right.
All right, good night. Thank you so much.
Okay, good night.